everyone, and welcome to the last lesson of Activity 27, Lesson 27.2. Today's lesson is starting on page 396, and you'll want a pencil and a calculator. Today we are going to talk about how we can put our equation of a circle in standard form using the method completing the square. So notice this equation here of a circle is not in the nice, pretty, fully factored form that we are used to with our circles. So what we need to do is create it so that it is in this fully factored X-hikers, as I like to call it, standard form. So from there, what we do is we need this process of completing the square. So what's going to happen is you're going to always want to move to one side of your equation all of the terms that involve a variable. So notice here in this example, we have everything moved to the left-hand side that involves a variable, and the 16 has to go to the right-hand side because it does not have a variable, an X or a Y. Now we're going to order them so that the X's are together. And notice the Y squared portion, this is fine. This is in that form that we normally like it. So we're not going to touch that. We're only going to complete the square on this problem on the X's. Now to get the value of this, our goal is basically to make this so that it's in a factorable form. What I mean by that is, remember when you have something from algebra that you're going to factor, it would be like this, and we would say, oh, what multiplies to BC adds to BB, and we're able to factor it into two separate things, right? That was from your algebra days. So when we complete the square, we want to have it so that it's in that format. And to do that, what we're going to do each time is you are going to take the B term, so this value here, okay? And what you're going to do is you are going to divide that value by 2, and then you're going to take that number and you're going to square it, and in this case, we got 9, okay? Now this is factorable, right? Going back to what I was talking about earlier, what multiplies to be 9 and adds to be 6? Well, that would be 3 and 3, so that would be x plus 3 and x plus 3 if we put it in the factored form. Well, x plus 3 can just be written as quantity squared since there are 2 of them. Now we have this in that format, right? Now remember, this was an equation though, okay? And in an equation, whatever we added to the left, notice we added this 9, we're also going to need to add to the right-hand side with our 16. So what's basically happening right now is on the left-hand side, we have this x plus 3 quantity squared that we got when we factored. We still have this y minus 2 quantity squared that we weren't touching. And on the right-hand side, we had 16. And now we also added to that the 9 that we had added to the left-hand side to help us get this. So that is a total of 25, which now puts our equation into standard form, right? Because this equaling 25 would be our equation. And we can also now identify the center is at -3, 2, and the radius is the square root of 25, which is 5. So let's try another example like this, okay? If we're on the next page. Now, they don't give you a ton of room, so you're definitely going to want to move this off to the My Notes section or get a separate sheet of paper, okay? So for 5a, notice again, there's only one y squared. There's no other y's, so that's good to go. We're actually not going to have to complete the square on that, which is kind of nice. What we will have to complete the square on, though, are these x values. So we're going to start by writing this so that we have the x's grouped together, and we know we're going to have to add in a blank to help us factor. Again, the y squared does not need to be factored on this one, and right now it's going to equal 3. And because we're adding something to the left, we're also going to add it to the right to keep this equation equal, right? And again, the value we're going to add is going to be this b term, which is -2. And we're going to take -2, divide it by 2, and that value squared is what gets added to the other side. Now, a reminder, you always want, whenever a negative number is squared, it's a positive number. So notice we're always going to be adding a positive number. In this case, +1 squared is 1, okay? Now, when we factor this, what multiplies to be positive 1 but adds to be negative 2, that's going to be x minus 1 and x minus 1, aka x minus 1 quantity squared. And you may notice it was that number that we got when we divided by 2 inside of here. So it's kind of a matching set. Plus y squared, and on the right-hand side, 3 plus 1 is 4. So this is going to be our equation in standard form. For part B, again, we only have to complete the square on the x's so far because the y is already in the format that we want for our standard form of the equation. Okay, so that's good news that we have that already taken care of. Okay. Now, next, what we need to do then with that is we are going to set this up again for part B here so that we have x squared plus 3x plus a blank plus y plus 2 quantity squared equals 1. And again, whatever we add to the left, we'll have to add to the right as well. So this time we're going to take 3 divided by 2, we get 1.5. Okay, 1.5 squared is going to be 2.25. Okay, so we're going to add 2.25 to both sides. Okay. So now when we factor this again, this is where that shortcut comes into play, because what multiplies to be 2.25 and adds to be 3? Well, that value we got when we divided by 2, positive 1.5 squared, is going to multiply 1.5 times 1.5 is 2.5, and then it adds to be 3. So this is the nice shortcut to see that whatever we got when we divided by 2 goes inside of here. Okay. And then from there, we still have the y's that we didn't have to complete the square on. And then 1 plus 2.25 is 3.25. Okay. Oops. So we have our final answer here of our equation in standard form. Okay. Now, we are also going to see some examples, if you notice, that involve both the x's and the y's needing to have their squares completed. Okay, you're definitely going to want to either use a separate sheet of paper or write very tiny in these examples because you're going to need a lot of room. Okay. And we're only going to do examples C and D, but these each take some space. So definitely a separate notebook might be a useful thing here for these notes. So we're going to do C and D. Now notice in both of these, the x's and the y's are not in the format that we need. So we're going to complete the square for both the x's and the y's. Okay, so we're going to add a blank for the x's. The y's are grouped together that we're also going to add a space in for. And then that's going to equal 2 blanks being added to the right-hand side since we're adding 2 blanks to the left. So we'll need to complete the squares twice. So we're going to take that b term, divide it by 2, and then square that number. Negative 4 squared is 16. Again, please be careful. When you square a negative, it's always a positive. Okay. And we're going to add that to both sides. And then we're also going to do the same thing for negative 14. We're going to divide it by 2, and we're going to square it. So negative 7 squared is 49. And add that to both sides, okay? Now, again, when we factor, what multiplies to be 16 adds to be negative 8. Our shortcut is what we got when we divided by 2. And then same thing with our y values. What we got when we divided by 2 is negative 7, and we squared it. So then 16 plus 49 is going to give us our right-hand side, which is 81. And again, that just comes from adding those 3 values together. Okay. So now we have our equation of the circle in standard form, and we'd be able to identify our center and our radius. So our center would be at 4, 7, and our radius is the square root of 81, which is just 9. Our last example for today is going to be letter D. And again, you might have need extra space on this one because these take up a lot of room, right? And again, notice we're going to have to complete the square for both the x's and the y's here because they both are not in our format that we need them to be to start, okay? And because we're adding 2 blanks to the left, we'll have to add 2 blanks to the right-hand side of our equation as well. So we're going to take the b value, divide it by 2, and then square that to see what we add to our blanks for the x's. Same thing with the y's. 12 divided by 2 is 6, squared is 36. Okay. On the right-hand side, what multiplies by 9 adds to be 6, our value we got when we divided by 2, right? 3 and 3, so x plus 3 quantity squared. What about what multiplies to be 36 and adds to be 12? Well, the value we got when we divided by 2, which is positive 6. And on the right-hand side, 4 plus 9 plus 36 is a total of 49. So here's our equation in standard form that now will tell us what our center is, as well as what the radius is, right? Because we know the r squared is 49. R would just be 7. All right, now we will definitely be working more with this in class. Thanks for watching and congrats on finishing up Unit 4.